in my view, that's kind of where we're going. And, 5 or 10 years from now, it'll be at $1 million or, even quicker than that. And, everyone will be saying, well, God, I wish I bought it 100,000. So you've got to kind of flip the thing. I don't think there's anybody in Bitcoin who doesn't feel like they paid too much when they bought it. They hated the fact that it was where it was when they bought it. But, what I always say is just wait 5 years and, you'll feel like you're a genius. It could go a lot farther. We just don't know. Samson thinks it goes to $1 million. I don't know. It's possible. Dr. Jeff thinks it goes to 500,000, 700,000. Anything's possible. As we all know with this asset, it trades like a wild animal now. It could also go to those numbers and then have a decent sized correction too, which it's also done in the past. So keep that in mind. I'm not sure I want to be buying it at 750.
Lawrence Lepard starts out by discussing the stealthy demise of fiat money, which is one of the most pressing but often ignored financial concerns of our day. Many people continue to hold on to the idea that the dollar is stable, even when governments print money at unprecedented rates and debt grows out of hand. However, Lepard cautions that this way of thinking is dangerously out of date. Slowly at first, then all at once, he likens fiat money to a sinking ship. He claims that Bitcoin and gold are lifeboats rather than merely investments. He compares waiting for a better entry point while the system collapses to fighting over Titanic seat costs. You have two options: board the lifeboat or not. If you're intrigued by bold predictions and deep financial insights, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more engaging content. Thank you for your support and enjoy the video.
Can you just unpack that a little bit and why Bitcoin has so much upside?
Yeah, it's actually only 0.2%. So if
yes.
Bitcoin could go to $1 million a coin, 10x from here, and it'd still only be 2% of the world's assets. And it's a great question. I've been encountering it a lot. Well, yeah, I get it. You may be right, but gosh, I got to pay 100,000 for what you bought for 20.
Yeah, unit count bias. Yeah.
So you get price bias, and I say no. You're looking at it from the wrong model. You're looking at it from a trees don't grow to the sky investing model. What you got to look at it from is kind of more of a replacement cost model, that fiat's going to fail and Bitcoin's going to replace it. And if that's the case, with fiat, you're in a burning fire or you're in a burning theater and you got smoke coming up. And so what's the price? What's the value of the price of getting through that door or the exit so you don't get burned? It's unlimited in fiat terms. So in my view, that's kind of where we're going. And, 5 or 10 years from now, it'll be at $1 million or, even quicker than that. And, everyone will be saying, well, God, I wish I bought it at 100,000. So you've got to kind of flip the thing. I don't think there's anybody in Bitcoin who doesn't feel like they paid too much when they bought it. They hated the fact that it was where it was when they bought it. But, what I always say is just wait 5 years and, you'll feel like you're a genius. Hey, I bought some at the peak pre the SBF crash. I bought some at 65. And when it went to 15, I wasn't feeling great about it, but I knew I wasn't wrong. And now it's at 104 and, someday it'll be 204. So if I paid 65 for that, so what? You know what I mean? So it's you just have to get into it. It is. Bernanke printed, 3 or 4, and then that became, 5 to 7. And now, I think the next one is 10 to 15 or maybe more. A lot of it has to do, there are a lot of policy choices that get made, but a lot of it has to do with quote unquote something breaking. It kind of depends on, a crisis. Like if, for example, the stock market were to fall or unemployment, or unemployment were to squirt up and people were to start to get cautious. And there's just a lot of stuff lining up, Brandon, that leads me to believe that, we're going to, it's very possible we're going to break the power law model on the upside here in this cycle. I think this cycle hits 200 very easily. I think, that's kind of a done deal. And then, it could, with some of these other things kicking in, it could go a lot farther. We just don't know. Samson thinks it goes to $1 million. I don't know. It's possible. Dr. Jeff thinks it goes to 500,000, 700,000. Anything's possible. As we all know with this asset, it trades like a wild animal now. It could also go to those numbers and then have a decent sized correction too, which it's also done in the past. So keep that in mind. I'm not sure I want to be buying it at 750. Bitcoin's going to continue to massively outperform gold, and Bitcoin is going to eventually demonetize gold. But I say eventually cautiously, because it doesn't happen overnight. And so, in this inflationary cycle, I have every confidence gold will get to 5,000, 10,000, maybe 15,000. But while it's doing that, 5,000 would be, almost a double. Bitcoin's going to go from 100,000 to $1 million, and from $1 million to 2 million. So, which is going to outperform Bitcoin by a huge measure. But gold isn't going to go away because there's 6 or 8 billion people on the planet. A lot of them think gold is sound money. and the money, the base money, the fiat currencies are all failing. So they're both going to go up a lot. But Bitcoin's going to continue to demonetize gold. It's going to demonetize real estate. I mean, there's so much monetary premium in things where it really shouldn't be there. I mean, real estate, it's a place to live. It's nice. I mean, the nice things, it can't print any more of it, but it only has, it ought to be valued on its utility, not because it's a store of value, because there are much better stores of value, Bitcoin being one of them. So, that's how you get to just numbers that are much higher than what we're looking at today, as these other things become demonetized.
Michael Saylor's suggestion that the United States sell its gold and purchase Bitcoin is humorously supported by Lepard, but he makes a crucial addition. Even whether the gold is still there is unknown to us. Since the 1950s, America's gold reserves have not undergone a thorough audit. Thus, there is no concrete evidence of their remaining amount. It is difficult to depend on gold as a financial asset in the absence of that assurance. Lepard also warns that the dollar might plummet and cause hyperinflation if the United States abruptly declared it was moving to Bitcoin as its reserve currency. Rather than calling for a systemic change, he suggests a gradual transition to sound currencies like gold and Bitcoin. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications for future Bitcoin, macroeconomic, and digital asset content before we go any further. Now, let's get into his powerful predictions.
I know that there are investment manager consultants, and a famous one in Boston actually called Cambridge Associates, who hated Bitcoin but what happens is their clients are coming to them and saying, hey, this is a great performing financial asset. What do we do with it? What you got to tell us about this. And so they were kind of forced to study it and come up with an answer. It wasn't a particularly positive one. It was like, well, it's extremely risky, and if you want to have a 1% allocation, fine. Which is, really the wrong answer. But my point is that the marketplace of ideas, the Overton window shifting, the knowledge and the observation that this thing has run for 16 years, and we've got 400 million addresses and 100 million users, and all these blocks that haven't been corrupted, and price performance that blows the socks off of everything else. I mean, is forcing the world to come to terms with it. And you can ignore Bitcoin if you want to, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring Bitcoin, because it's going to go to millions of dollars a coin. And if you knew about it and you didn't, take the time to study it and think about whether that was something you wanted to do, you missed it. I mean, not entirely, because once it goes to 2 million, it'll go to 10. But the point is, at every stage of the way, just like, I ignored it at 100, before it was at $100, because I thought all these things have failed. There were other experiments that failed, and I ignored it, and that cost me. But, everyone's ignored it at times, and everyone, Saylor was a skeptic. Remember in 2013, he was a skeptic and thought it was a fraud, but he revisited it, and so it's never too late to turn around and go, you know what, I misunderstood this, and now, I hope someday Peter Schiff will do that. I don't think it's as crazy as some people have said it is. I think that, gold is going to get demonetized. It's interesting because there's a lot of debate around this whole area of, do you want the national federal government to be strong? Peter Schiff said, well, if you're saying the government should buy, Bitcoin, that you're being a statist because you want to prop up the government. And there's a whole hardcore libertarian part of the Bitcoin world that says, like, screw propping up the government, screw a strategic reserve, screw Jason Lowry. I just want the fucking government to fail. Let's just let them go bankrupt and fail, and we'll figure out some better solution. I'm sympathetic to that, but I also think that, there still is a little bit of a great powers competition left, and there are these spheres of the world, and China's one, and Russia's one, and the Middle East is another, and these spheres all have influence over other parts of the world, and I, honestly, I'd rather, I think, live under our rule of law than China's rule of law or Russia's rule of law. And our political system, as broken, as dysfunctional as it is, I still think it's better than theirs. And so I do kind of want to see the U.S. way prevail. And that being the case, I want to see the U.S., if we're going to do strategic reserve kind of stuff, it might as well make it in the thing that's the best, which is Bitcoin. And so, Russia and China have bet on gold, very bigly. Especially China. Russia, I think, might be stacking Bitcoin. I don't know, but I tend to believe they get it a little bit better. And so, in a sense, if we go with Bitcoin and they go with gold, we're leapfrogging them, and very much the way that, in the early 1800s, the U.S. and England went with gold. As Britain got off the silver standard, the pound as the standard, which was originally their currency, and the gold became the backing of the pound. And China and India didn't do that; they stuck with silver, and they suffered massively as a result of that. And so I want to see the U.S. pick the right thing, which is Bitcoin. And if we were to sell the gold, I think I laugh a little bit at Saylor's comment because he says, "Oh yeah, we should sell our gold." Well, okay, Michael, that's assuming we still have it, because if those of us in the gold camp who've been watching carefully for a long time now and recognize that all our gold is unaudited since the 50s, despite the occasion, Mnuchin flew down to Fort Knox and showed a few bars, okay, but that's not the whole thing. We're not so sure we have the gold we say we have, so hard to sell it if we don't really have it. I think we've got to be careful here, though. There's also timing. If the U.S. government were tomorrow say we want to go to Bitcoin as the reserve currency to replace the dollar, the dollar would plummet and we'd have massive inflation. And so, my sense is, they're playing with dials that you can't go from 1 to 10, in a few minutes. We got to trend in the right direction, which is to say trend toward sounder money. I mean, my sense is right now is Besant is trying to figure out what his next move is. I mean, he knows he's got a big problem with his debt. He knows he's got to fund out a lot of debt short term. Trump's already said to Powell that rates are too high. And so they're trying to figure out what their next moves are monetarily to get us going in the right direction.
As we come to a close, Lawrence Lepard gives us a provocative and insightful message regarding the future of money and America's place in the evolving global financial system. He pokes fun at Michael Saylor's proposal that the U.S. sell its gold and purchase Bitcoin, but he makes a valid point. We might not actually have as much gold as we think we have. There hasn't been a thorough audit of the U.S. gold holdings since 1950, and a few fictitious trips to Fort Knox don't yield much information. Using gold as a national asset is made more difficult by this ambiguity. After that, Lepard delves into a more general geopolitical discussion. In contrast, some Bitcoin enthusiasts think the U.S., although he acknowledges that the system is seriously flawed, he still thinks that the legal and political system in the United States is superior than those of nations like China and Russia. According to him, the goal is to steer the United States in the direction of better money, not to embrace collapse. He thinks the future lies in Bitcoin, not gold. Lepard contends that the United States should intentionally embrace Bitcoin in order to outpace China and Russia if they are doubling down on gold. He cautions, nevertheless, that this change needs to be made with caution. The dollar might plummet and lead to severe inflation if a drastic step is taken, such as formally designating Bitcoin as the new reserve currency. You can't just turn a switch overnight. Rather, he supports a slow shift to sound money, guided by individuals who are aware of the system's risk and complexity. This is brain surgery, as he puts it, and you shouldn't rush it. However, there is a chance to get it right and guide the globe toward a more stable financial future with the correct leadership. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if you thought his viewpoint was helpful so you don't miss any updates. We'd love to know what you think about the future of cryptocurrency markets, so please share your ideas in the comments section. We appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video.